Hey professionals, Sophia Sarah Joseph here, author of Choreography of Awakening, international speaker, former Olympic figure skating coach, and founder and creator of imagintlife, a revolutionary path to mastery of self that leads towards creation of your masterpiece, the life you were born to live according to your life's blueprint. Welcome to Professionals on Air podcast, a podcast where we discuss how to walk, talk, live, and grow authentically as a professional in the 21st century. It is my intention to bring you diverse and exciting speakers and prove that no matter where we come from and what we do, there are clear laws that work through us all that we can tap into to create what we desire. And today I have the pleasure and honor to introduce you to my amazing guest, Jason Leduc. Jason is the founder of Evil Genius Leadership Consultants, and for over 20 years, he served in the United States Air Force and retired at the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. He expertly bridges the best leadership and strategy lessons from the military with the civilian world. And that is the foundation on which Evil Genius Leadership Consultants is based on. He enjoys training dynamic leaders across diverse industries, from government agencies to small business owners. And make sure you stay till the end to get Jason's gift. Welcome, Jason. Thank you so much for your generosity and gift of time and wisdom to share with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always a privilege to speak to this group.
Thank you. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how did you get started?
When I was thinking about getting out of the Air Force way back in 2013, I was eligible to retire in 2015, and so I decided in 2013 that was going to be my last assignment in the Air Force. So I had a couple of years to get ready for what it was I wanted to do after the Air Force. And I wasn't really sure what it was I wanted to do right away, but as I worked through the things I was working on in my last Air Force assignment, which was teaching as a distance learning instructor at Air War College in Alabama to students all over the world in the remote learning program, I was teaching things like developing strategy and following through on strategy, executing strategy, and teaching leadership and command practices to students at Air Command and Staff College. And I thought to myself, I really enjoy what I'm doing here. And I think that because these are hard things, even for our best and brightest in the United States military, I'm sure there are people who want to learn this outside, and they're probably struggling trying to learn these strategy principles and leadership principles just on their own. So that was really what I had hoped to do with Evil Genius Leadership, was bring the best of what we teach the military about strategy and leadership out to the civilian world, whether that is small businesses, large businesses, startups, or even nonprofits. And I found that just about everybody needs a little help with that. And what's really been great is now that I've been in business for almost 8 years, which is hard to believe.
Time flies.
Yeah, right. It's hard to believe. I've found that things I've learned out in the civilian world, working with my civilian clients, are things that I've been able to bring back and help teach folks in the Air Force. So there's been this really great cross-training between what I thought I was going to bring out to help the civilian world, and I found ways to bring back what I've learned in the civilian world to the military folks as well.
That's quite a story. I can totally relate to that in terms of athletics, for example. I mean, when an athlete puts all his time and effort for so many years into one area and then that is over, it's quite a challenge to transition and find yourself. What are you going to do in the real world? Like, how do you bridge that together, moving from sports into life, moving from the army into the real world? That's like a totally different environment, isn't that?
It is, and elite sports is a really fantastic example that's very similar to the military, because there are a lot of things you developed as an athlete: discipline, perseverance, critical thinking, being able to critique yourself and improve yourself. These are things we also do for folks in the military, but they don't necessarily realize that they have these skills when they go out to the civilian world, when they leave the military. I'm sure that's very true for athletes as well, is they say, well, I don't know what I'm going to do in the real world, but you have all of these skills and inherent traits that you had to develop over so many years to be successful in one area, that if you pick those up, no matter what you choose to do out in the civilian world, out of the sports world, you'll be successful because you've developed these internal traits like perseverance, attention to detail, commitment to excellence, that just are really hard to learn on your own.
So how do you find the transition? I know it's now been 8 years, so you're back into the space where you feel like a fish in the water again, right? But how was it, that transition in the beginning?
It's hard, and I think most military people will tell you this, because we are around military people all day when we're in the military, especially if you're on active duty. You're around military people all day, and so you get used to certain things. You get used to, if somebody says they're going to do something, you don't usually have to go ask them if it got done. It's just done. So there are a lot of little things that are an adjustment for a military person coming back out into the civilian world, where if you ask someone to do something, or someone says they're going to do something, that doesn't automatically mean it's going to get done, that you can just count on getting done. And you might need to do some more follow-up than you would normally do. So there are a lot of little things like that. Is that the best way I can put it in the military, when we're in the military in the beginning, others place expectations on us of our behavior and our commitments, and then we start to internalize those commitments to ourselves, those expectations to ourselves. And we have to recognize that once we step out of the military community, not everyone shares those same expectations. And so if we have an expectation for someone, we need to be really clear about it. We can't assume that the expectations we have internally are the same, are what people understand our expectations are. We have to learn to communicate our expectations in a way that they'll be received and understood.
I totally hear you. It would be relating with them, internalizing what you're saying, relating normal kids to athletic kids. They're not normal kids. They're like an entirely different breed of people, right?
It's you understand as an elite level athlete that when you were a kid working on your sport, that to you expected from yourself you were going to work 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day on your sport because you were committed to it. But someone had to set that expectation for you early on. You internalized that, and I'm sure I completely get where you're coming from. That if you would assume if something was important to somebody, that they would spend 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day working on one thing over and over again to perfect it. But the reality is that's just not what it is. And that's okay. Everybody's different. Everybody's level of commitment is different. That's all okay. What's important for us to understand when we're trying to be professional and working with other people, in our definition of professionalism, we can't automatically expect that our expectations for ourselves are the same as everyone else's expectations for themselves. And so we need to learn to communicate that. And sometimes that takes some negotiation to get everybody on the same page on a team.
So it's interesting you bringing in that negotiation part of that. And actually, when I transitioned into this space, I've read the book. It begins with the no, and I think what's his name? The last name was Camp, and he is the leadership teacher and coach, and also coming from the army background, and it was very powerful. As well as somehow for me, I've been trying to, as I was learning in the space, the leadership, I was actually reading the books written by people like you that were like Navy SEALs or Air Force. And these were very powerful tools that you've learned and that you can bring in and share with professionals that I'm sure they could greatly benefit from if they implement it.
Yeah. There's a ton of great books out there. And the theme across the good ones is just like what we've been talking about. It's not, as leaders, it's not our job to make everyone be exactly like us and do things exactly the way we would do them, and internalize those same expectations that we have for ourselves. As leaders, our job is to build an effective team to accomplish whatever it is we're trying to accomplish. That's why we build teams in the first place, right? Is because we want to accomplish something that we can't accomplish all on our own. So we build a team around us to do that, but we don't want 10 different clones of us on that team. We want people with all kinds of different backgrounds and different thought processes, but we want to develop them to be good leaders in their own right and to be professionals as part of a team. But we aren't trying to get them to do things exactly the same way we do. We're trying to get them to bring a contribution and grow along with us on the team.
I love that. I love the team is so powerful, and everyone wins when everyone is bringing in their strengths to the team and complements each other and understand how that works. Jason, what would you say is your biggest strength as a professional?
My biggest strength as a professional now, I think it's probably different than it was a few years ago. My biggest strength now is that I can recognize that we need all those different people on the team. We don't want all those little clones. If you'd asked me that question a few years ago, I would have said I'm really organized, I'm really disciplined. I can get everybody like focused and moving in the same direction. But now I would say my strength is recognizing that I'm not trying to make everybody as focused and disciplined as I am. I'm helping them find their strengths, and we're using their strengths to make the team better. And I think that's my strength now, is helping everybody see what their strengths are and guiding all that to contributing to the bigger whole.
Oh, that's powerful. So what would your biggest weakness as a professional be now? And how do you deal with that?
My biggest weakness is I do get frustrated when people do not do things the way I would do them. And that is I've recognized that that's a weakness, and I think that's a lot of progress from where I was when I started this journey into business a few years ago. So I recognize it, and I constantly have to tell myself they don't have to be exactly like you. They don't have to do it exactly the way you would do it. They need to find their own way, and they're going to be better off finding their own way. One of the things that's really helped me, one of the tools that's really helped me get to that point, is I meditate every morning for about 15 to 20 minutes.
And well, I see it as you speaking, you go into the meditative state.
I do a little bit. Yeah. And that 15 to 20 minutes first thing in the morning helps me get my mind in the right space to be accepting of what's coming at me instead of trying to make the rest of the world bend to my will. So that's a huge tool I've found over the last few years. I've been doing it every day. Today was day number 645 in a row that I meditated.
645?
645 days in a row I have not missed a day meditating.
Yay!
I started many, many years ago with it, but I was always kind of sporadic with it, where I'd do it for a few weeks and I wouldn't. 645 days in a row I've meditated. And I can see that I know the difference on when I looked back on it. Days I didn't meditate, I was not as accepting. I was not as open to what the world was bringing towards me. I was trying to force the world into the way I wanted things to be. And now I am not perfect, but most days much more accepting of what the world and other folks are bringing towards me and figuring out how we can best work together.
So is there a specific type of meditation you do?
I do guided meditations. There's an app called Headspace that I really like. There's a bunch of them out there. That's the one I've been using for the last 5 or 6 years, and I find it really helpful. There's a beginner program for the first couple of weeks, and then they've got all kinds of courses. They've got all kinds of things. You can do them as like a one-off for the day, or you can do like 30-day courses where you're working on the same thing, like creativity or mindfulness or dealing with stress. They have all different programs if you want to focus on one area as well. And then they also have a program where they help you start to get into where you are just kind of meditating on your own and don't need a guided program to work through your daily practice. So if someone's interested in starting with meditation, I would go download the Headspace app and try the free. I think the first 10 days are free. Give that a try and see if you like it and if it works for you.
That's great. I meditate. Actually, my program, Imagined Life, has to do with meditation. And yeah, so we're doing that. Drinking water meditation, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you transcend drinking water into a meditation practice. How cool is that?
Well, that is cool. And one of the things I've learned through meditation is anything where you can be present in the moment with
Right.
whatever it is you're doing can be a mindful and meditative experience. So if you're really being engaged in that moment of drinking water, I can totally understand how that can be a meditative experience.
Well, I dearly love your level of awareness, of understanding what that weakness is and finding the way of dealing with that. And so, how do you know that it's 645 days? How are you keeping track?
Oh, the app tells you, right? So when you finish
Ah!
every day, it's one of those, they're the folks who makes apps are real good at getting you to come back and use it again, right? So whenever you finish the program, it pops up a new, when you finish for the day, it pops up a new screen and it tells you how many total minutes you've meditated, which I forget what that number is, and then it tells you what your run streak is, how many days in a row you've done it. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah, it's a little feature in the app that the app developers use to keep you coming back, but it's working because I keep coming back. So
when I started meditating, they didn't have those things, and I took the commitment for 1,000 days, and so I was tracking, writing it down
yeah.
every single day. Yeah, so it's cool that the apps are doing that today.
Yeah.
Jason, what is one thing you believe that every professional should know that you've learned during your years in the Air Force?
Oh, so many. If the one piece the one piece of advice I could offer to professionals or people who are looking to be professional is follow through on the commitments to yourself.
Hmm.
That being able to follow through on our commitments to everyone else is important, but many times we make commitments to ourselves that we don't follow through on, and that is where things fall by the wayside. That new business we wanted to start, or that side hustle, the new workout program, drinking enough water, getting to sleep every night, eating healthy, those are all commitments that we need to make to ourselves. When we follow through on the commitments we make to ourselves, we are in a meditating every morning is a good one. When we follow through on those commitments we make to ourselves, one, it's easier to follow through on commitments to other people. Two, we are in a much better position to follow through on those commitments, especially when we think about the commitments we make to our own health and wellness. Getting enough sleep. I didn't believe this as a young person, but I completely believe it now. Whatever your number is, for me, it's about 7 hours. I know people who function great on 5 or 6 hours. I know people who need to get their 8 to 10 hours of sleep every night. Whatever your number is, make that commitment to get that, because you will be a much more energetic, much more creative, much more capable person if you get that sleep. And honestly, you will be much more pleasant to be around for the rest of us when you follow through on your commitments to yourself and you're not thinking about, I let myself down again.
I would call that the airplane rule. Mask on yourself first.
Yeah, well, and in flight training, to take the analogy further, when you go through flight training, the most important thing in the airplane is always flying the airplane. So you've always got things like you're trying to navigate, you're trying to talk on the radios. In advanced Air Force aircraft, you might be doing other things. But the number one thing is always fly the airplane, right? Right? Just like putting your mask on first so you can help somebody else. If you're the pilot of the airplane, always fly the airplane. You can talk on the radio later. You can let the air traffic controller know what's going on after you make sure the airplane is being flown correctly and safely. So
Thank you for sharing that. And I think people really, really need to hear that, especially it's so much easier sometimes to do that commitment to others and not really follow through with their own selves and not realizing how you really fail others when you don't follow through on a commitment with yourself.
Yeah. And that's what leads to burnout, and that's what leads to us having poor relationships with other people, is if we're always following through with other people, but we're not following through on the commitments to ourselves. That's where some of those relationships can break down.
What is one thing that has you fired up right now?
I'm excited about so many things right now. I have, over the last 6 months, I have gotten back involved with the Las Vegas startup community. So I've been helping out. In fact, I was just over at a co-working space today, just kind of networking with people. And I looked at a couple folks asked me if I'd look at their pitch decks. And I just kind of looked at their pitch decks and gave them some feedback before they go pitch investors in the next few weeks. So I'm just super excited about all the great things that are going on in the Las Vegas startup community, the tech community here. There are so many great events that have started up over the last year or so. For anyone who is interested in tech or meeting other entrepreneurs in Vegas, there are a ton of great events that are happening right now where you can meet incredible people who are working on the same things you are in your business.
And what would you say a habit that you would wish you had? Is there a habit that you wished you had, but you don't have it yet?
Oh, that's a great question. A habit that I wish I had that I don't have yet. One of the things that I've always had to work on, and I'm not the best at, is I'm not always the best listener. And I think if I had a habit I would want to work on, or a habit I should work on, is sitting and listening and just letting the world happen around me instead of getting in there and jumping in and saying, okay, this is what we all need to do. Just listening and kind of letting things happen is probably the habit I think I need most to develop.
I bet you're a great listener because you're really paying attention to that. I bet people that are not great listeners don't have a clue that they're not great listeners.
Well, and that's true. And, years ago, I had to have people tell me I had to listen more. And that lesson finally sank in. But I think I could be better at it. So like anything, it's a work in progress. It's always working towards the ideal, trying to get a little bit better and improve every day. So,
Jason, imagine that your name changed today and you're no longer called Jason and you have to choose a new name. Out of these four, success, trust, courage, or passion, which of these names would you choose and what would change in your life as a result?
So if I had to choose the one that I would most want, it would be courage. Because who doesn't want to be courageous, right? And we all need that courage to get us through to face the challenges that we need to face. But I think if you were describing the one that best describes me now is trust, because trust and integrity are very important to me. I actually had this discussion with my marketing folks a couple of weeks ago of I want to make sure that everything we put out, whether it's on social media or email or whatever it is, always comes across that I'm a person who can be trusted. That's very important to me. And I always want to be honest, compassionate and caring and friendly, but always honest with people so that they don't have to question whether I'm whether I'm giving them the best information or the best, the response is going to help them the most. So.
What would happen now? So those names you have embodied and embodying more courage, what would change?
Embodying more courage, I think I would certainly be able to pursue a lot more opportunities and be a little less conscious of the risk of putting myself out there to pursue those opportunities.
So my question is to audience now. Imagine that your name changed today and you have to choose a new name out of these four: success, trust, courage, or passion. Which of these names would you choose, and what would change in your life as a result? And write your chosen word in the comments or send me a private message and I will get you a free gift. And I want to thank Jason so much for this great interview and great, great value bombs. Like, commitment to yourself is like something so powerful that stands out for me. Thank you for that. And I hope that everyone learned so much from Jason too. And Jason has a free gift for you. So what do you have for people? And also, where can people find you?
All right. So the easiest way to find me, go to our website, evilgeniusleadership.com. That's the name of the company, Evil Genius Leadership Consultants. Go to evilgeniusleadership.com.
On the screen.
It's on the screen, yeah. Or you can find us. We are Evil Genius Leadership everywhere on social media. So on the main ones, we're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn primarily. I'm on Twitter, but I usually do that more to just kind of communicate directly back and forth with people. Don't post a ton on there. We're not on TikTok. We are on YouTube. We're starting to repopulate the YouTube with some new videos. It's been a couple of years, but we're getting some new videos up on YouTube, and we're having a lot of fun making those videos. So Evil Genius Leadership everywhere on the social media world. And for the gift, I've created so goals are really important and goal setting is really important. And I'm sure you know, Safeya, from your other guests, how important it is to create your goals and write your goals in a way that help you be effective following through on your goals. So I've taken what I learned from my time in the Air Force, and especially my time doing flight testing in the Air Force, which is a very goal-driven and results-oriented area in the Air Force, and created what I think is a much simpler.
Perfect. As it will feel probably perfect, or you just crash.
Yeah, it can be that way sometimes. So I've created what I think is a much simpler goal-setting system that will help people stick with their goals than some of the other things that are out there. There's a lot of goal-setting systems with long acronyms, and they seem to be getting longer every year, these new goal-setting systems that have more and more components to them. I've tried to boil it down to 3 components with a couple of things you think about in each component to help people set their goals, and not just set them and write them down to track them, but set them in and write them down in a way that's going to make them want to follow through every day. Just like we talked about making commitments to yourself. So I have a digital course, an online course for that goal setting system. It's normally $19.99, but we're going to give it to you for free for watching today.
Yay! So we're going to type all of that in the comments. So look for that below and really take advantage of this offer. I would.
Please do. That's why it's there.
Thank you. And thank you so much for joining us here again on Professionals. Thank you for tuning into our show, the Professionals on Air podcast, a podcast where we discuss how to walk, talk, live, and grow authentically as a professional in the 21st century. To learn about Jason more, visit his website and make sure you take him up on his amazing offer. It will help you to take commitment to yourself to another level. And the link will be in the comments. To receive a gift from me, type in one of the 4 words: success, trust, passion, or courage in the comments, or send me a private message and I will send you a gift. And we appreciate your comments and feedback and can't wait to see you next Wednesday, where I will introduce you to Chrissy Simonakis, one of Australia's best marketing managers, a writer, coach, and award winning mentor. As always, send us your questions. Ciao.